This family adopted a disabled bear cub. What the HOA did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The night sky loomed dark and heavy as rain pounded against the windshield of Noah McAllister's truck. His headlights cut through the downpour, illuminating the winding mountain road ahead. Noah gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white with tension. He hadn't planned to be out this late, especially in such terrible weather, but a last-minute call from a client had forced him to take the scenic route home through Pinewood Forest. As the truck rounded a sharp bend, something small and dark darted across the road. Noah slammed on the brakes, the tires skidding on the wet asphalt. The truck came to a halt just inches from a tiny, trembling figure. Noah squinted through the rain-streaked windshield, his heart pounding in his chest. There, huddled at the edge of the road, was a bear cub, soaking wet, visibly injured, and utterly alone. Noah's first instinct was to drive away. Wild animals were unpredictable, and where there was a cub, a protective mother couldn't be far behind. But as he watched the tiny creature struggle to stand, only to collapse back onto the muddy ground, Noah knew he couldn't just leave it there. He grabbed his flashlight from the glove compartment and carefully stepped out into the rain. The beam of light revealed the full extent of the cub's condition. Its right hind leg was severely damaged, possibly broken, and there was a deep gash across its side. The cub let out a pitiful whimper as Noah approached, too weak to run or fight. Noah scanned the surrounding forest, searching for any sign of the mother bear. Nothing. He listened intently, but the only sounds were the relentless rain and the cub's labored breathing. "Where's your mama, little one?" Noah whispered, crouching down a safe distance away. The cub's frightened eyes met his, and in that moment Noah felt a connection he couldn't explain. This wasn't just a wild animal. It was a living being in pain, abandoned, and fighting for survival. With a deep breath, Noah made a decision that would change his life forever. He shrugged off his jacket and carefully approached the cub, speaking in soft, reassuring tones. "It's okay. I'm going to help you," he murmured, though he knew the animal couldn't understand him. Somehow, the gentle cadence of his voice seemed to calm the cub, which made no attempt to flee as Noah cautiously wrapped it in his jacket. As Noah lifted the bundle, he was struck by how light the cub felt, too light for a young bear that should be growing quickly under its mother's care. The cub didn't struggle in his arms. Instead, it seemed to collapse against him, as if finally surrendering to exhaustion after fighting alone for too long. Back in the truck, Noah placed the cub gently on the passenger seat and cranked up the heater. His mind raced as he pulled back onto the road. The local wildlife center was closed at this hour, and the nearest emergency vet was over 50 miles away. There was only one option. He would have to take the cub home for the night and figure out what to do in the morning. Noah's phone rang, cutting through his thoughts. It was his wife, Eliza. "Noah? Where are you? The kids are asking about bedtime stories, and I told them you'd be home by now." "Eliza, something's happened," Noah said, glancing at the bundle beside him. "I found an injured bear cub on the side of the road. It's hurt badly, and I couldn't just leave it there." The line went silent for a moment. "You have a what in our truck?" "A bear cub. I think it's been abandoned. Its leg is injured, and it can barely move." Another pause. "Noah McAllister, what exactly are you planning to do with a wild bear?" "Just for tonight, Eliza. Tomorrow I'll call the wildlife center, but right now this little one needs warmth, shelter, and probably food." Noah could practically hear his wife's thoughts through the phone. Eliza was practical, sensible, the perfect counterbalance to his occasional impulsiveness. But she was also deeply compassionate, especially when it came to those in need. "Okay," she finally said, her voice softening. "I'll prepare the garage. And Noah, drive carefully. You've got 2 lives in that truck now." As Noah continued down the rain-slicked road, the cub stirred beside him, releasing a soft whimper. "Hang in there, little one," he said. "We're going home." Home was a modest 2-story house nestled on the outskirts of Pinecrest Valley, a small town where everyone knew each other by name. The McAllister family, Noah, Eliza, and their children, 12-year-old Lily and 8-year-old Ethan, had moved there 3 years ago, seeking a quieter life away from the city. When Noah finally pulled into the driveway, Eliza was waiting at the garage door, a worried expression on her face. Behind her, Lily and Ethan peered curiously, their eyes widening as Noah carefully lifted the jacket-wrapped bundle from the truck. "Is that really a bear?" Ethan whispered, both fearful and fascinated. "It's so small," Lily said, stepping closer despite her mother's cautioning hand. Eliza had prepared a makeshift bed using old blankets and a large dog crate they had kept from their previous pet. Noah gently placed the cub inside, unwrapping his jacket to reveal the full extent of its injuries under the bright garage lights. "Oh, Noah," Eliza breathed, her initial skepticism melting into concern. The cub's matted fur was caked with mud and blood, its small body trembling despite the warmth of the garage. Its right hind leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, and the gash along its side looked even worse than Noah had initially thought. "Can we keep it, Dad?" Ethan asked, his eyes never leaving the cub. "No, honey," Eliza answered before Noah could. "This is a wild animal. It belongs in the forest, with its own kind." "But it's hurt," Lily protested, "and it's all alone." Noah placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "We're just helping it for tonight. Tomorrow we'll call the Wildlife Center. They'll know what to do." As the family gathered around the crate, the cub's eyes fluttered open. Despite its weakened state, there was a fierce will to live in those dark eyes, a wild heart beating strongly beneath the broken body. "It's a girl," Eliza said suddenly, having moved closer to examine the cub. "How do you know?" Noah asked. "I worked at the zoo during college, remember? I know a female black bear cub when I see one." Lily knelt beside the crate, her face level with the cub's. "She needs a name," she said quietly. "Lily," Eliza warned. "We can't name her. She's not—" "Willow," Ethan interrupted. "Like the tree that bent but didn't break in the big storm last year." The name hung in the air for a moment, and then the cub made a soft sound. Not quite a growl, but something quieter, almost like acceptance. "Willow," Noah repeated, and somehow it felt right. That night, as the rest of the family went to bed, Noah stayed in the garage, keeping watch over their unexpected guest. He had managed to clean the worst of the mud from Willow's fur and bandage her wounds as best he could with their first aid kit. He had also offered her water and some mashed berries and honey, which, to his surprise, she had eagerly lapped up. As the night deepened, Noah found himself talking to Willow, telling her about his family, about the town, about the forest where she should be growing up. The cub watched him with intelligent eyes that seemed to understand more than any animal should. "You know this isn't permanent, right?" Noah said softly. "Tomorrow you'll go to people who know how to take care of you properly. They'll help you get better, and then you'll go back to the wild where you belong." Willow made a small sound and laid her head on her paws, her eyes never leaving Noah's face. "Yeah," Noah sighed, settling back in his chair. "I'm not sure I believe that either." Morning came with clear skies and difficult news. When Noah called the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, he was told they were already at capacity with 3 other orphaned bear cubs from a recent forest fire. "We just don't have the space or resources for another cub right now," the director explained apologetically, "especially one with extensive injuries. The best I can do is put you on a waiting list. Could be a few weeks." "A few weeks?" Noah echoed, glancing at Willow, who was sleeping peacefully in her crate. "What am I supposed to do with her until then?" "Legally, I should tell you to contact the Department of Natural Resources. They might have to euthanize her, especially if the injuries are as severe as you're describing." Noah's chest tightened. "That's not an option." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Look, Mr. McAllister, I shouldn't be telling you this, but if you're willing to care for her temporarily, I can email you some guidelines on orphaned cub care, just until we have space." After ending the call, Noah gathered his family in the kitchen to share the news. Eliza's expression grew more concerned with each word, while the children's faces lit up at the prospect of keeping Willow longer. "Noah, we can't possibly keep a wild bear," Eliza said, lowering her voice so the children wouldn't hear. "We don't know the first thing about caring for one, and what about when she gets bigger? Bears can be dangerous." "It's just for a few weeks," Noah assured her. "The rehabilitation center will take her as soon as they have space. And they're sending guidelines. We can do this, Eliza." Eliza looked unconvinced, but her expression softened as she glanced toward the garage, where Willow was now awake and attempting to stand, despite her injured leg. "She has a fighting spirit," Eliza admitted. "But what about the neighbors? And isn't this illegal without some kind of permit?" Noah hadn't thought that far ahead. Their neighborhood was governed by a strict homeowners association that had rules about everything from lawn height to the color of mailboxes. He couldn't imagine they'd be thrilled about a bear cub taking up residence in the McAllister garage. "We'll keep it quiet," Noah decided. "The garage is detached and it's fenced on all sides. No one needs to know Willow is here until she's gone." Eliza gave him a look that said she knew better, but she didn't argue further. Instead, she surprised him by saying, "If we're doing this, we're doing it right. That cub needs proper medical attention." Which was how, later that day, Dr. Sarah Chen, the local veterinarian and a trusted friend of the McAllisters, found herself examining a bear cub in their garage. "I treat dogs and cats, Noah, not wildlife," she said, though her hands moved expertly over Willow's injured leg. The cub remained surprisingly calm under her touch, only occasionally letting out a soft whimper. "I know, and I appreciate this more than I can say. We just need to know if she can recover." Dr. Chen's face was serious as she completed her examination. "The leg is definitely broken, but what concerns me more is the infection setting in from that gash. She needs antibiotics, proper bandaging, and that leg needs to be set correctly. Can you help with that?" Dr. Chen hesitated, then nodded. "I can, but Noah, you need to understand something. This cub, Willow, as your kids have apparently named her, will never be fully wild again. Even if her leg heals, which is a big if, she'll likely always have a limp. In the wild, that's a death sentence." The words hung heavy in the air. Noah looked at Willow, who was now watching him with those intelligent, trusting eyes. "So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that even when the rehabilitation center takes her, she'll probably never be released back into the forest. She'll live in captivity for the rest of her life. A zoo, if she's lucky." Noah hadn't considered this possibility. He had assumed that once Willow recovered, she would return to the wild where she belonged. The thought of her confined to a small enclosure, being stared at by tourists day after day, made his heart ache. "There has to be another option," he said quietly. Dr. Chen gave him a sympathetic look. "Let's focus on getting her healthy first. Then we can worry about her future." Over the next few days, the McAllister family fell into a new routine centered around Willow's care. Dr. Chen had shown them how to properly clean and bandage her wounds, and had provided antibiotics that needed to be administered twice daily. A task that proved challenging but not impossible, with enough patience and a lot of honey as a reward. The children eagerly took on responsibilities, with Lily researching bear diets and Ethan designing increasingly creative toys to keep Willow entertained as she began to regain her strength. Even Eliza, who had been the most hesitant, was often found sitting beside Willow's crate, reading aloud from her nursing textbooks as if the cub were just another student. As for Willow herself, she was revealing a personality as distinct as any of the human members of the household. She was curious, intelligent, and surprisingly gentle. Despite her wild nature, she seemed to understand that the McAllisters were helping her, and she accepted their care with a patience that belied her youth. The most remarkable transformation, however, was in the way she interacted with the children. With Lily, she was calm and attentive, often lying still for hours as the girl read to her or carefully brushed her growing fur. With Ethan, she showed a playful side, batting at the toys he created and making soft huffing sounds that almost resembled laughter. But it was her relationship with Noah that was truly special. From that first night in the rain, a bond had formed between them, an unspoken understanding that transcended the natural boundaries between human and wild animal. When Noah spoke, Willow listened as if comprehending every word. When he approached her crate, she would reach out a paw as if in greeting. "It's not normal," Dr. Chen commented during one of her follow-up visits. "Bears, especially wild ones, don't typically bond with humans like this." "She knows we saved her," Lily said confidently. "She's thanking us." Dr. Chen smiled at the girl's certainty but shared a concerned look with Noah. "Just remember, no matter how domestic she seems, she's still a wild animal with instincts we can't fully understand or predict." Noah nodded, but as he watched Willow gently take a strawberry from Ethan's palm, her movements careful and deliberate to avoid scratching him with her claws, he wondered if that was entirely true. There was something different about Willow, something that couldn't be explained by science or natural history books. 2 weeks into their adventure with Willow, the inevitable happened. Margaret Winters, the president of the Pinecrest Valley Homeowners Association, noticed the increased activity around the McAllister garage and decided to investigate. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and the family had moved Willow, now much stronger and more mobile, though still limping heavily, to a larger enclosure Noah had built in the corner of their fenced backyard. They were all so engrossed in watching the cub explore her new space that they didn't notice Margaret's approach until she was standing at the gate, her mouth open in shock. "Is that a bear?" she demanded, her voice piercing the peaceful family moment. Noah quickly stood, positioning himself between Margaret and the rest of his family. "Margaret, I can explain." "A bear, Noah McAllister? In a residential neighborhood? Have you lost your mind?" By now, Eliza had ushered the children and Willow back into the garage, closing the door firmly behind them. She rejoined Noah, her face composed despite the anxiety Noah could see in her eyes. "Mrs. Winters," Eliza said calmly, "that's Willow. She's an orphaned cub we're rehabilitating temporarily until the Wildlife Center has space for her." Margaret's narrow face pinched even tighter. The HOA bylaws clearly state that no resident may keep wildlife, livestock, or exotic pets on their property. A bear, even a cub, is definitively wildlife. "She's injured," Noah explained, trying to keep his voice level. "She wouldn't survive if we hadn't taken her in." "That is not my concern," Margaret sniffed. My concern is maintaining the safety and property values of this neighborhood. What do you think would happen if that creature escaped? Or if it attracts its mother or other bears to our community? Her mother is dead, Noah said flatly, and Willow is contained safely. She poses no threat to anyone. Margaret pulled out her phone and began typing furiously. The HOA board will be convening an emergency meeting about this. In the meantime, I expect that animal to be removed from the premises within 24 hours, or I will be forced to contact animal control and the authorities. With that, she turned and marched back down the driveway, her rigid posture radiating disapproval. After she left, Noah and Eliza stood in silence for a moment, the gravity of the situation settling over them. "What are we going to do?" Eliza finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Noah shook his head, at a loss for words. They had known keeping Willow was a temporary solution, but they weren't ready to give her up. Not yet, not when she was still healing, not when she had become such an integral part of their family in such a short time. Inside the garage, they found the children huddled protectively around Willow's enclosure. The cub seemed to sense the tension, her dark eyes moving anxiously between the family members. "Is Mrs. Winters going to take Willow away?" Ethan asked, tears already forming in his eyes. Noah knelt down to his son's level. "We're going to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen," he promised, though he had no idea how to keep that promise. That evening, after the children were in bed, Noah and Eliza sat at their kitchen table, a stack of HOA bylaws between them and Dr. Chen on speakerphone. "There might be a loophole, Doctor," Chen suggested. "If Willow is classified as a rehabilitation case rather than a pet, you might be able to argue that she falls under different regulations." "We'd need proper documentation for that," Eliza pointed out, flipping through the papers. "Permits, certifications, things we don't have." "I could help with that, Doctor," Chen offered. "I'm not a wildlife specialist, but I can certify that I'm overseeing her medical care. It might buy you some time at least." Noah rubbed his temples, feeling the pressure of the situation weighing on him. Time for what, though? The Wildlife Center still doesn't have space, and now we have Margaret Winters breathing down our necks. Eliza reached across the table and took his hand. "We'll figure this out, Noah, for Willow." The next morning, the entire neighborhood was buzzing with the news of the McAllisters' unusual house guest. Some neighbors were concerned, others curious, and a surprising number were supportive, having grown weary of Margaret Winters' dictatorial control of the HOA. By midday, a small group had gathered at the McAllister house, asking to see Willow for themselves. Against his better judgment, Noah allowed a few neighbors at a time to visit the garage, where Willow was back in her enclosure, watching the strangers with cautious interest. "She's beautiful," said Mrs. Rodriguez from across the street, her eyes soft as she observed the cub. "And look how gentle she is with your children. Not at all what I expected. Margaret's overreacting, as usual," added Mr. Jenkins, who lived 2 doors down. "That cub's no more dangerous than a puppy." "She won't stay a cub forever," someone else pointed out. "What happens when she grows up?" It was a valid question, and one that had been haunting Noah. Willow was already noticeably bigger than when he'd found her, and black bears could grow to well over 200 pounds. Even with her gentle nature, an adult bear wasn't something that could be kept in a suburban backyard. "The Wildlife Center will take her long before that becomes an issue," Noah assured the group, hoping he sounded more confident than he felt. As the day wore on, more neighbors visited, and to Noah's surprise, many offered their support. Some brought food for Willow, berries, fish, even honey, while others promised to speak in the McAllisters' favor at the emergency HOA meeting scheduled for the following evening. "It's becoming a regular circus around here," Eliza commented as they watched yet another family leave after visiting Willow. "I'm not sure if this is helping or hurting our case." Noah understood her concern. The more attention Willow received, the more difficult it would be to keep her situation quiet from authorities beyond the HOA. But there was also strength in numbers. If enough neighbors supported them, perhaps the HOA would be forced to make an exception. That night, as Noah checked on Willow one last time before bed, he found her standing at the edge of her enclosure, her dark eyes fixed on his face. "What are we going to do with you, Willow?" he asked softly, reaching through the wire to stroke her head. The cub leaned into his touch, a low, contented sound rumbling in her chest. Noah stayed with her longer than usual, telling her about the day's events as if she could understand the precariousness of her situation. Maybe she did on some level. There was an awareness in those eyes that went beyond animal instinct. "I promised we'd protect you," Noah whispered, "and I'm going to keep that promise somehow." As if in response, Willow placed her paw on his hand, her claws carefully retracted. It was a gesture she had made before, but tonight it felt different, more deliberate, more meaningful, a pact between species. Noah didn't know what the emergency HOA meeting would bring, or how they would solve the larger problem of Willow's future. But in that moment, with the connection between them so tangible, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Willow had found her family, and they weren't going to let her go without a fight. The emergency HOA meeting was held in the community center, a modest building usually reserved for holiday gatherings and the occasional yoga class. Tonight, however, it was packed to capacity, with nearly every resident of Pinecrest Valley in attendance. The McAllister family sat in the front row, facing the HOA board members who were seated at a long table on a slightly raised platform. Margaret Winters took her place at the center of the table, calling the meeting to order with a sharp rap of her gavel. "We are here tonight to address a serious violation of our community bylaws," she announced, her voice carrying across the now silent room. "The McAllister family has brought a wild animal, specifically a bear cub, into our neighborhood, putting all of our safety at risk." Noah felt Eliza's hand tighten around his. On his other side, Lily and Ethan sat straight-backed and solemn, both wearing the Save Willow buttons they had made that afternoon. "Before we open the floor for discussion," Margaret continued, "I want to remind everyone that the bylaws are clear on this matter. Section 7, paragraph 3 states, "No resident shall keep or maintain any animal not classified as a traditional domestic pet, including but not limited to livestock, wild animals, exotic species." "We're not keeping her as a pet," Noah interrupted, unable to contain himself. "We're rehabilitating her until the Wildlife Center has space. There's a difference." Margaret's lips thinned to a nearly invisible line. "Mr. McAllister, you will have your turn to speak. For now, I am outlining the relevant regulations." "Let him speak, Margaret," called a voice from the back of the room. It was Mr. Jenkins, standing with his arms crossed. "We all know what the bylaws say. What we want to know is why this family is being persecuted for an act of compassion." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Margaret's face flushed with anger. "This is not about compassion," she insisted. "It's about safety and property values. A wild bear in our neighborhood is unacceptable, regardless of the circumstances." "May I speak?" Eliza asked, rising to her feet. When Margaret reluctantly nodded, Eliza addressed the room with the same calm authority she used in her nursing classes. "My husband found Willow. That's the cub's name. abandoned and injured on the side of the road. Her mother was nowhere to be found, likely killed by poachers or hit by a car. Willow has a broken leg and was suffering from infection. If Noah hadn't brought her home that night, she would have died. Eliza paused, letting her words sink in. We contacted the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center immediately, but they're at capacity due to recent forest fires. They put us on a waiting list and provided guidelines for temporary care. We've been following these guidelines meticulously, with regular oversight from Dr. Sarah Chen, our local veterinarian. At the mention of her name, Dr. Chen stood up from her seat near the back of the room. I can confirm that the McAllisters have provided excellent care for the cub, she stated. Her injuries are healing well, and she poses no threat to the community. In fact, she's remarkably docile for a wild animal. Margaret looked unimpressed. Docile or not, it's still a bear. What happens when it grows larger? What happens if it reverts to its wild instincts? Are we supposed to wait until someone, perhaps a child, is injured before acting? Willow wouldn't hurt anyone, Ethan burst out, jumping to his feet. She's gentle and smart, and she's our friend. Ethan, Noah said softly, pulling his son back down to his seat, let the adults handle this. But Ethan's outburst had struck a chord with many in the room. Parents looked at each other, considering the child's passionate defense. The boy has a point, said Mrs. Rodriguez. I've seen this cub with my own eyes. She's remarkably gentle with the children, more well-behaved than some of the dogs in this neighborhood, if I'm being honest. This drew a few chuckles from the crowd, along with nods of agreement. Margaret raised her gavel for silence. Anecdotal observations aside, we must consider the legal implications. Keeping a wild animal without proper permits is not just against our bylaws, it's against state law. Actually, came a new voice, that's not entirely accurate. All heads turned to see a tall woman in a ranger's uniform standing at the back of the room. She made her way to the front, nodding politely to the McAllisters as she passed. Ranger Kate Morales, she introduced herself to the room. Department of Natural Resources. We received several calls about a bear cub being kept in Pinecrest Valley, so I thought I'd come see the situation for myself. Noah's heart sank. This was exactly what they had feared. Official involvement that could take Willow away from them, possibly even leading to her euthanization if her injuries were deemed too severe for rehabilitation. Ranger Morales seemed to read his thoughts. I've already visited the McAllister home and observed the cub, she continued. I've also spoken with Dr. Chen about her medical condition. Under normal circumstances, yes, keeping a wild bear without permits would be illegal. However, there are provisions for emergency temporary care when no immediate alternatives are available. Margaret looked stunned. Are you saying you're allowing this situation to continue? I'm saying that the McAllisters acted appropriately given the circumstances, Ranger Morales clarified. They sought professional help, contacted the proper authorities, and have been providing adequate care until a more permanent solution can be arranged. That said, a suburban backyard is not an appropriate long-term habitat for a bear, no matter how well-intentioned the caregivers. Noah felt a weight settle in his chest. What are you suggesting, Ranger Morales? I'm suggesting that we work together to find a proper facility for Willow, she replied, her tone softening. The Wildlife Center is still at capacity, but there are other options we can explore. In the meantime, I'm willing to issue a temporary care permit that will legitimize your situation, both legally and, I presume, in terms of your HOA regulations. All eyes turned to Margaret, who looked as if she had swallowed something particularly unpleasant. The bylaws do make exceptions for situations with proper legal authorization, she admitted reluctantly. A cheer went up from the crowd, led by Ethan and Lily, who were jumping up and down with excitement. Noah felt Eliza's arms wrap around him in a tight hug, her relief palpable. But amidst the celebration, Noah couldn't help but focus on the words temporary and proper facility. Ranger Morales was offering them a reprieve, not a permanent solution. Eventually, Willow would still have to leave them. As the meeting began to break up, Noah approached Ranger Morales. "Thank you for your support," he said sincerely. "But I have to ask, what will happen to Willow in the long run? Dr. Chen says her leg will never fully heal. She'll always have a limp." The ranger nodded, her expression thoughtful. "That does complicate things. Bears with permanent disabilities generally can't be released back into the wild. They usually end up in zoos or wildlife sanctuaries. And what kind of life is that for a bear? Confined to an enclosure gawked at by visitors." Ranger Morales studied him for a moment. "You've grown attached to her," she observed. "We all have," Noah admitted. "She's become part of our family." "I understand, Mr. McAllister. But caring for a bear cub is very different from caring for a fully grown bear. They require specialized environments, diets, and care that most families simply can't provide." "But what if we could?" The question came from Eliza, who had joined them. "What if there was a way for us to give Willow the care she needs, while still allowing her to maintain her connection with our family?" Ranger Morales raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting?" "I don't know yet," Eliza confessed. "But there has to be a solution that doesn't involve sending Willow to live behind bars for the rest of her life." The ranger's expression softened. "Look, I can see how much you care about this cub. I'll help however I can within the bounds of what's legal and what's best for Willow. But I need you to be prepared for the possibility that the best solution might not be the one you're hoping for." Noah nodded, understanding the warning beneath her words. Loving Willow didn't give them the right to keep her if it wasn't in her best interest. But as they walked back to their children, who were excitedly telling their friends about how they had saved Willow, Noah couldn't help but wonder, what if the best place for Willow really was with them? The temporary care permit bought the McAllisters time, but it also brought new responsibilities. Ranger Morales had outlined specific requirements for Willow's care: proper nutrition, adequate space, enrichment activities, and regular health assessments. She also made it clear that the permit would only last for 3 months, after which a permanent solution would need to be implemented. During those 3 months, the McAllister family threw themselves into creating the best possible environment for Willow. Noah, who worked as a building contractor, constructed a spacious enclosure in their backyard, complete with climbing structures, a small pool, and a cozy den for Willow to retreat to when she wanted privacy. Eliza researched bear diets extensively, ensuring that Willow received all the nutrients she needed for healthy growth. The children spent hours each day interacting with her, reading to her, and designing puzzles that would stimulate her keen intelligence. Willow, for her part, continued to flourish under their care. Her wounds healed, though, as Dr. Chen had predicted, her injured leg never fully recovered. She walked with a permanent limp, but it didn't seem to diminish her spirits. She grew rapidly, her body filling out, her fur becoming thick and glossy. And yet, despite her increasing size and strength, she remained gentle and affectionate with the family, especially the children. What surprised everyone most, however, was Willow's intelligence. She quickly learned to respond to simple commands like sit and stay. She figured out how to open the latch on her enclosure, prompting Noah to install a more complex locking mechanism. She even seemed to understand certain words, perking up at honey or swim, 2 of her favorite things. "It's remarkable, Doctor." Chen commented during one of her regular checkups. She's displaying cognitive abilities more advanced than what we typically see in bears, even those in captivity for years. She understands us, Lily insisted. Not just words, but feelings too. When I'm sad, she always knows, and she tries to comfort me. Noah had noticed this as well, the way Willow seemed to respond to the emotional states of family members. When Ethan had fallen off his bike and come home crying, Willow had been unusually subdued, watching the boy with apparent concern until his tears stopped. When Eliza received news that she had been promoted at the hospital, Willow had matched the family's celebratory mood, playfully rolling around in her enclosure and making happy huffing sounds. "It's almost like she's trying to be one of us," Noah remarked to Ranger Morales during one of her visits. The ranger observed Willow for a long moment. "There's an ongoing debate in wildlife biology about animal consciousness and emotional intelligence," she said thoughtfully. "Some scientists believe certain species, including bears, possess a level of awareness that goes beyond simple instinct. Others maintain that what looks like emotional understanding is just learned behavior reinforced through repetition." "And what do you believe?" Noah asked. Ranger Morales smiled slightly. "I've worked with wildlife for 15 years, Mr. McAllister. I've seen things that can't be explained by the textbooks. Let's just say I try to keep an open mind." As the 3-month deadline approached, the McAllisters intensified their search for a permanent solution for Willow. Eliza had been researching wildlife sanctuaries across the country, looking for one that might provide Willow with both the specialized care she needed and the freedom she deserved. Noah had been in constant communication with Ranger Morales, exploring legal options that might allow them to continue caring for Willow in some capacity. "What about this place in Colorado?" Eliza suggested one evening, as they sat at the kitchen table surrounded by printouts and open laptops. "Bear Haven Sanctuary. They specialize in rehabilitating injured bears, and they have a program that allows the animals to roam in a large, natural environment." Noah leaned over to look at the website she was showing him. "It looks promising," he agreed. "But it's so far away, we'd hardly ever see her." Eliza placed her hand over his. "I know this is hard, Noah. But we always knew this arrangement was temporary. We have to think about what's best for Willow." "What if what's best for her is staying with us?" Noah asked, voicing the thought that had been growing in his mind over the past months. "She's happy here, she's thriving, and we've proven we can provide the care she needs." "Noah," Eliza said gently, "Willow is going to get much bigger. She already weighs over 100 pounds, and she's not even fully grown. Eventually, she'll be too large and powerful for us to manage safely, no matter how gentle her temperament." Noah knew she was right, but the thought of sending Willow away, of explaining to the children that their beloved friend would no longer be part of their daily lives, was almost unbearable. "There has to be another way," he insisted, pushing back from the table. "I'm going to check on her." Outside, the night was cool and clear, with a full moon illuminating the yard. Willow was awake in her enclosure, her dark eyes gleaming in the moonlight as Noah approached. She made a soft, huffing sound of greeting and came to the fence, reaching her paw through the wire mesh to touch Noah's hand, a gesture that had become their special form of communication. "Hey, girl," Noah said softly, crouching down to her level. "We're trying to figure things out, I promise." Willow made another sound, almost like a questioning whimper, and Noah found himself talking to her as if she could understand every word. "The permit expires next week," he explained. "Ranger Morales says you need a permanent home, somewhere with more space, more resources than we can provide here. There's a sanctuary in Colorado that sounds good, but it's so far away." Willow tilted her head, her eyes never leaving Noah's face. "I don't want to send you away," Noah admitted, his voice breaking slightly. "None of us do. You're family now. But I don't know if we have a choice." Willow pressed her nose against the wire, making a low, mournful sound that seemed to echo exactly what Noah was feeling. "I know, girl, I know." The next morning brought unexpected news. Ranger Morales arrived at the McAllister home unannounced, her expression unusually solemn. "Is everything all right?" Noah asked as he invited her in. "Not exactly," she replied, accepting his offer of coffee. "There's been a development regarding Willow." Noah felt his stomach tighten. "What kind of development?" "I received a call from the state wildlife director yesterday. Apparently, someone has filed a formal complaint about a bear being kept in a residential area. They're sending an inspection team next week." "But we have the temporary permit," Eliza protested, joining them in the kitchen. "We've followed all the requirements to the letter." Ranger Morales nodded. "The permit is legitimate, but it was always intended as a stopgap until a permanent solution could be found. The inspection team will be looking to ensure that adequate arrangements have been made for Willow's future care." "And if they haven't?" Noah asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then they'll remove Willow and place her in a state-approved facility of their choosing," Ranger Morales said bluntly. "Most likely the State Wildlife Center, which is already overcrowded and underfunded." Noah exchanged a worried glance with Eliza. They had visited the State Wildlife Center once, a depressing place with small concrete enclosures and overworked staff. It was barely better than a prison for the animals housed there. "We can't let that happen," Noah said firmly. "We'll find a solution before the inspection. The sanctuary in Colorado won't be an option in time," Ranger Morales interrupted. "I checked with them this morning. They have a 6-month waiting list for new admissions." 6 months? Eliza echoed, dismayed. "But we only have a week." The ranger took a sip of her coffee, her expression thoughtful. "There might be another option," she said slowly. "It's unorthodox, but given the circumstances." "We're listening," Noah said eagerly. "There's a private wildlife sanctuary about 3 hours from here, in the mountains. It's run by a retired zoologist named Dr. Marcus Reynolds. He specializes in caring for animals that can't be released back into the wild due to injury or improper socialization." "That sounds perfect," Eliza said. "Why didn't you mention this before?" Ranger Morales hesitated. "Because Dr. Reynolds is controversial in wildlife management circles. He believes in a more integrated approach to animal care, particularly for species with high intelligence. His methods don't always align with conventional practices." "What does that mean, exactly?" Noah asked. "It means he allows for more human interaction than most sanctuaries. He believes certain animals can form meaningful bonds with humans without losing their essential nature. It's an approach that's frowned upon by many traditionalists in the field." Noah felt a spark of hope. "But you think he might be able to help Willow?" "I think it's worth a conversation," the ranger acknowledged. "He has the expertise, the facilities, and possibly the willingness to consider an arrangement that would allow you to maintain some connection with Willow. But I need to be clear. Even if Dr. Reynolds agrees to take her, Willow would still have to leave your home. The difference would be that you might be able to visit her, perhaps even participate in her care to some extent." It wasn't the perfect solution Noah had been hoping for, but it was better than sending Willow to the state facility or shipping her across the country to Colorado. "How do we contact him?" "I can reach out," Ranger Morales offered. "But I should warn you, Dr. Reynolds is particular about the animals he takes in. He'll want to meet Willow first, observe her behavior, assess her condition. And he'll want to meet your family, too, to understand the dynamics at play." "When can he come?" Eliza asked. "I'll call him today. With the inspection team arriving next week, we don't have much time." After Ranger Morales left, Noah and Eliza gathered the children to explain the situation. As expected, they were upset at the prospect of Willow leaving, but the possibility of being able to visit her offered some consolation. "Will Dr. Reynolds be nice to Willow?" Ethan asked, his young face pinched with worry. "Ranger Morales says he's very good with animals," Noah assured him. "And if he agrees to take Willow, we can go see her whenever we want." "It won't be the same," Lily said quietly. "She won't be here with us every day." Noah pulled his daughter into a hug. "I know, sweetheart. But we always knew this day would come. Willow is growing up, and she needs more space than we can give her here." Lily nodded against his shoulder, but her eyes were full of tears. "Can we at least show Dr. Reynolds how smart she is, so he knows she's special?" "Of course we can," Eliza said, smoothing Lily's hair. "We'll make sure he understands exactly how amazing Willow is." 2 days later, a dusty pickup truck pulled into the McAllisters' driveway. Out stepped a tall, lean man with weathered skin and a shock of white hair tied back in a ponytail. He wore faded jeans, a flannel shirt, and hiking boots that had clearly seen many miles of rough terrain. "Dr. Reynolds?" Noah asked, stepping forward to greet him. The man nodded, his piercing blue eyes taking in Noah, then shifting to the backyard where Willow's enclosure was visible. "You must be Noah McAllister. Kate Morales speaks highly of you and your family." His voice was deep and resonant, with a slight accent that Noah couldn't quite place. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," Noah said, leading the way to the backyard. "We're in a bit of a time crunch with the inspection team coming next week." "So, I understand," Dr. Reynolds replied. "Kate filled me in on the situation. Quite the predicament you found yourselves in." As they rounded the corner of the house, they saw Eliza, Lily, and Ethan already at Willow's enclosure. The bear cub, though cub seemed increasingly inaccurate given her growing size, was watching them attentively as Lily read aloud from a book. Dr. Reynolds stopped, observing the scene from a distance. "Interesting," he murmured. "She's fully engaged with the child. No signs of agitation or distraction. Willow loves story time," Noah explained, "especially when Lily reads. She seems to understand that it's a special activity." The zoologist's eyebrows rose slightly, but he made no comment as they continued toward the enclosure. When Willow noticed the stranger approaching, she immediately shifted position, moving closer to the fence where Lily was sitting. It wasn't an aggressive move, Noah noted, but rather a protective one, as if she were positioning herself between the unknown man and the child. "Hello, Willow," Dr. Reynolds said softly, crouching down several feet from the enclosure. "I've come a long way to meet you." Willow regarded him warily, her dark eyes assessing. She made no sound, merely watched as the man slowly extended his hand, palm up, toward the fence. "It's okay, Willow," Lily assured her. "He's here to help." At the sound of Lily's voice, Willow relaxed slightly. She took a cautious step forward, sniffing the air in Dr. Reynolds' direction. "Remarkable," the zoologist murmured. "She's taking cues from the child. That's unusual behavior for a bear, even one raised in captivity." Over the next hour, Dr. Reynolds observed Willow's interactions with each family member. He watched as Ethan showed her the tricks they had taught her, sitting on command, retrieving specific objects, even a simple form of communication where she would tap her paw once for yes and twice for no in response to questions. "Did you train her using food rewards?" Dr. Reynolds asked, as Willow correctly identified which cup a blueberry was hidden under, a game Ethan had devised to challenge her. "At first," Noah admitted, "but now she seems to enjoy the mental stimulation for its own sake. She gets bored easily if we don't give her new challenges." Dr. Reynolds nodded thoughtfully. "Cognitive enrichment is important for bears. They're intelligent animals, far more so than many people realize." He turned to watch as Willow carefully took a treat from Lily's hand, her movements deliberately gentle. But this level of social awareness, this apparent understanding of human emotions and intentions, it's unusual. "She's special," Ethan said confidently. "Mom says she has an old soul." Dr. Reynolds smiled at the boy. "Your mother might be right." He turned to Noah and Eliza. "I'd like to examine her more closely, if that's possible, particularly her injured leg." With the family's help, Dr. Reynolds was able to conduct a thorough examination of Willow. The bear tolerated his touch with remarkable patience, only becoming restless when he manipulated her injured leg, which clearly still caused her some discomfort. "The break healed poorly," he confirmed, gently releasing the leg. "She'll never have full function. In the wild, this would indeed be a serious disadvantage." "Does that mean you can't help her?" Eliza asked anxiously. Dr. Reynolds straightened up, his expression thoughtful. "On the contrary, Mrs. McAllister. I think Willow is exactly the kind of animal my sanctuary was designed for." He looked around at the family. "But before we discuss that further, I'd like to speak with you and your husband privately." While the children stayed with Willow, Noah and Eliza led Dr. Reynolds back to the house. Once they were seated in the living room, the zoologist's expression became serious. "What you've accomplished with Willow is remarkable," he began. "You've provided excellent care under difficult circumstances, and the bond you've formed with her is evident. However, I need to be very clear about something. Willow is not a pet, and she never will be. She is a wild animal with instincts and needs that will become more challenging to manage as she continues to grow." Noah nodded. "We understand that. We've never treated her like a pet." "Perhaps not intentionally," Dr. Reynolds allowed. "But the environment you've created here, while admirable in many ways, is fundamentally domestic. Willow is adapting to human life rather than developing the skills and behaviors that would serve her as a bear." "But she can't go back to the wild," Eliza pointed out. "You said yourself that her leg would be a serious disadvantage." "That's true, Doctor," Reynolds agreed, "which is why I believe my sanctuary would be the appropriate next step for her. We can provide the space and specialized care she needs while also respecting her nature as a bear." "And what about our connection with her?" Noah asked, getting to the heart of his concern. "Ranger Morales mentioned that your approach might allow us to maintain some relationship with Willow." Dr. Reynolds leaned forward, his expression intent. "What I'm about to propose is unorthodox, but I believe it could work in Willow's case. My sanctuary includes a program for what we call collaborative care, situations where an animal has formed significant bonds with humans that would be detrimental to Seaver completely." Hope flickered in Noah's chest. "What does that involve?" "Essentially, your family would become volunteer caregivers at the sanctuary, working specifically with Willow under my supervision. You would visit regularly, weekly at first, then perhaps tapering to bi-weekly as she adjusts. You would participate in her care, help with her physical therapy, and continue the cognitive enrichment you've already started." "So we wouldn't be losing her completely," Eliza said, relief evident in her voice. No, but I must emphasize that the goal would still be to help Willow live as much like a bear as her condition allows. This means gradually reducing certain types of interaction and encouraging more natural behaviors. It's a delicate balance, maintaining the emotional connection while fostering appropriate development. Noah considered this. It wasn't the perfect solution he had dreamed of, but it was far better than the alternatives. And you're confident your sanctuary can pass any inspections. We can't risk Willow being taken to the state facility. My sanctuary exceeds all state and federal requirements for wildlife care, Dr. Reynolds assured him. We're regularly inspected and fully accredited. The approach I'm suggesting for Willow's case is unusual, but not in violation of any regulations. Noah and Eliza exchanged a look, a silent communication born of years together. Then Eliza nodded slightly, and Noah turned back to Dr. Reynolds. When could she move to the sanctuary? Given the timing with the inspection team, I'd suggest as soon as possible. Perhaps this weekend? That would give us a few days to prepare for her arrival, and for your family to adjust to the idea. It was happening so quickly, too quickly, but Noah knew they had no choice. This weekend it is, he agreed, his voice steadier than he felt. After Dr. Reynolds left, promising to return on Saturday with proper transport for Willow, the McAllisters gathered in the backyard. The children had taken the news better than expected, focusing on the positive aspect of being able to visit Willow regularly rather than the pain of her leaving. "We can help take care of her at her new home," Lily said, her initial tears giving way to practical planning. "I can still read to her, and we can make new games for her to play." "And Dr. Reynolds says there are other bears at the sanctuary," Ethan added excitedly. "Willow might make friends." Noah watched as his children sat beside Willow's enclosure, already telling her about the adventure that awaited her. The bear listened attentively, her eyes moving between them as they spoke, occasionally making soft sounds as if participating in the conversation. Eliza slipped her arm around Noah's waist. "They're resilient," she murmured. "More so than we give them credit for." "I know," Noah agreed. "I just wish—" He trailed off, unable to articulate exactly what he wished for. That they could keep Willow forever. That she had never been injured in the first place. That he hadn't stopped his truck on that rainy night, changing all their lives in an instant. No, he couldn't wish for that last one. Despite the complications, despite the inevitable pain of separation that loomed before them, Noah couldn't regret bringing Willow into their lives. She had taught them all something valuable. About compassion, about connection across species, about the unexpected ways love could manifest. "It's the right decision," Eliza said softly, seeming to read his thoughts. "For Willow and for us." Noah nodded, pulling his wife closer. "I know, but it doesn't make it any easier." The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Noah constructed a special crate for transporting Willow safely to the sanctuary. Eliza coordinated with Dr. Reynolds about Willow's diet and medical needs. The children created a scrapbook of photos and drawings to accompany Willow to her new home. "So she won't forget us," as Ethan earnestly explained. On Friday night, the eve of Willow's departure, the family held a special goodbye dinner in the backyard. They set up a table near Willow's enclosure so she could be part of the celebration, and prepared some of her favorite treats: fresh berries, honeycomb, and the special fish cakes Dr. Chen had recommended for her diet. As dusk fell, they shared stories about their time with Willow, the day she first ventured into the small pool Noah had built for her, the time she figured out how to open her feeding box, the way she always seemed to know when someone in the family was sad and needed comfort. "Remember when Mom got that bad news about Grandma being sick?" Lily said. Willow wouldn't leave her side all day, even though it was feeding time. Eliza smiled at the memory. She kept bringing me her favorite toy, like she thought it would make me feel better. And it did, Ethan pointed out. You started laughing when she kept dropping it in your lap. As the conversation flowed, Willow watched them from her enclosure, her dark eyes reflecting the lantern light. There was an awareness in those eyes, Noah thought, an understanding that something significant was happening. When it was time for the children to go to bed, they each took a moment to say a special goodbye to Willow. Ethan gave her the stuffed bear that had been his favorite toy since infancy. "So, you won't be lonely," he explained, his voice wavering slightly. Lily read one last story, her steady voice betraying her emotions only when she reached the final page and whispered, "To be continued at your new home." After the children went inside, Noah and Eliza remained in the yard with Willow. The night was clear and cool, with a canopy of stars stretching overhead. In the distance, an owl called, a reminder of the wild world where Willow rightfully belonged. "I almost canceled the whole thing today," Noah admitted quietly. "Called Dr. Reynolds and told him we'd changed our minds." "What stopped you?" Eliza asked, though she already knew the answer. Noah looked at Willow, who had settled on her bed of straw, her eyes still fixed on them. "Her. The fact that she deserves more than we can give her here, a chance to be what she truly is." Eliza rested her head against his shoulder. "You know, when you first brought her home that night, I thought you were crazy. A bear cub? In our garage? It seemed impossible that it could work even temporarily. And now I can't imagine our family without her," Eliza said simply. "But I also know that loving someone, even when the someone has 4 paws and fur, means wanting what's best for them, even when it hurts." Noah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Instead, he reached through the wire mesh of the enclosure, offering his hand to Willow. The bear rose and came to him, placing her paw against his palm in their familiar gesture of connection. "Good night, Willow," Noah whispered. "Sleep well. Tomorrow's a big day." Saturday dawned bright and clear, a beautiful late spring day that seemed at odds with the solemn mood in the McAllister household. Dr. Reynolds arrived promptly at 9, his pickup truck now pulling a specialized trailer designed for animal transport. "Good morning," he greeted them, his kind eyes taking in their subdued expressions. "I know this is difficult, but I want to assure you again that Willow will be well cared for at the sanctuary, and you'll be seeing her very soon. I've already scheduled your first visit for next weekend." The children perked up at this news, and even Noah felt some of the weight lift from his shoulders. It wasn't a final goodbye, just a transition to a new chapter in their relationship with Willow. Getting Willow into the transport crate was easier than they had anticipated. Whether she sensed the importance of cooperating or simply trusted them enough to follow their guidance, she walked willingly into the large wooden box when Noah led her there, only hesitating briefly at the threshold. "It's okay, girl," he encouraged her. "Just a short trip, and then you'll have so much more space to explore." Once Willow was secured in the crate, with plenty of ventilation and her favorite blanket for comfort, Dr. Reynolds and Noah carefully loaded it onto the trailer. The entire family then gathered for one last moment together before departure. "We'll see you next weekend, Willow," Lily promised, her hand pressed against the crate's wire window where Willow's nose was visible. "Dr. Reynolds says we can bring your books. And I'm making you a new puzzle," Ethan added. "It's going to be super hard, but I bet you'll solve it fast." Eliza stepped forward next, her composure remarkable given the emotions Noah knew she must be feeling. "Be good, Willow. Listen to Dr. Reynolds. We'll be there before you know it." Finally, it was Noah's turn. He knelt beside the crate, bringing his face level with Willow's. Those intelligent eyes met his, and once again he had the uncanny feeling that she understood everything that was happening. "This isn't goodbye," he told her softly. "It's just see you later. Your new home is going to be amazing. Room to run, trees to climb, maybe even other bears to meet. But you'll always be part of our family no matter where you live." Willow made a soft sound, pressing her nose against the wire mesh where Noah's hand rested. Then, to everyone's surprise, she tapped her paw once against the floor of the crate, the signal they had taught her for yes. Dr. Reynolds' eyebrows shot up. Did she just answer him? "Yes, she did," Lily said proudly. "I told you she understands." The zoologist shook his head in wonder. "In all my years working with wildlife, I've never seen anything quite like this. Willow is truly extraordinary." With final hugs for the children and handshakes for Noah and Eliza, Dr. Reynolds prepared to depart. "The sanctuary is about 3 hours from here, mostly mountain roads," he explained. "We should arrive early afternoon. I'll call you once Willow is settled in her new enclosure." "Take good care of her," Noah said, his voice rough with emotion. Dr. Reynolds nodded solemnly. "You have my word." As the truck and trailer pulled away, the family stood in the driveway, waving until they could no longer see Willow's face in the crate's small window. Then Ethan burst into tears, the brave front he had maintained crumbling at last. "I miss her already," he sobbed against Noah's chest as his father lifted him into a tight embrace. "Me too, buddy," Noah admitted. "Me too." The house felt eerily quiet without Willow's presence. The children moped around, lacking their usual energy. Noah found himself automatically walking to the backyard every few hours, only to be confronted by the empty enclosure, a stark reminder of what was missing. Dr. Reynolds called that evening as promised. "Willow has arrived safely and is settling into her new habitat," he reported. "She was a bit anxious during the journey, but she calmed down once we arrived at the sanctuary." "How is she adjusting?" Eliza asked, the phone on speaker so the whole family could hear. "Quite well, considering the significant change. She's explored her enclosure thoroughly and has already eaten a good meal. She seems particularly interested in the small stream that runs through her habitat. Spent nearly an hour watching the water and occasionally dipping her paw in." "She loves water," Lily said. "Dad built her a pool at home, and it was her favorite thing." "Well, she'll have plenty of water features to enjoy here," Dr. Reynolds assured her. "Her habitat includes not only the stream but also a deeper pool for swimming. Once she's fully acclimated, of course." Does she seem sad?" Ethan asked hesitantly. There was a slight pause before Dr. Reynolds answered. "She's certainly aware that her environment has changed, and she appears to be looking for familiar faces. But she's not showing signs of distress or depression. Bears are adaptable creatures, and Willow is especially resilient." The conversation continued for several minutes, with Dr. Reynolds patiently answering all their questions and reconfirming the arrangements for their visit the following weekend. By the time they hung up, the family felt somewhat reassured, though the absence of Willow still hung heavy in the air. "Why don't we start planning what to bring for our visit?" Eliza suggested, an attempt to lift spirits by focusing on the positive. "Willow would probably love some of those special treats, Doctor," Chen recommended. The suggestion worked, at least partially. The children became animated as they discussed what Willow might need or want in her new home. And for a while, the sense of loss was tempered by the anticipation of reunion. Later that night, after the children were in bed, Noah sat alone on the back porch, staring at the empty enclosure illuminated by moonlight. Eliza found him there, a cup of tea in her hands. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, settling into the chair beside him. Noah shook his head. Keep thinking about Willow, wondering if she's okay, if she's scared or confused. Doctor? Reynolds said she's doing well. I know, but still. Noah sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's strange, isn't it? How quickly she became such an important part of our lives. How empty it feels without her. Eliza sipped her tea thoughtfully. Not strange at all. Love doesn't always follow logical patterns. Sometimes it just happens, across all sorts of boundaries, even species. They sat in companionable silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Eliza spoke again, her voice tentative. Noah, there's something I've been thinking about. It's probably crazy, but I can't shake the idea. What is it? Eliza turned to face him, her expression earnest in the moonlight. What if we moved closer to the sanctuary? Not right away, but eventually. Maybe when my contract at the hospital is up next year? Noah stared at her, surprised. Move? Our whole lives are here. Your job, the kids' school, our friends. I know it's a big change to consider, Eliza acknowledged. But think about it. The area around the sanctuary is beautiful. There are towns nearby with good schools. I could transfer to a regional hospital. You can build houses anywhere. And we'd be close enough to see Willow regularly, Noah said slowly, beginning to warm to the idea. Not just occasional visits, but real involvement in her life as she grows. Eliza nodded eagerly. Exactly. And from what Dr. Reynolds said, the sanctuary's always looking for dedicated volunteers. We could help with more than just Willow, be part of something bigger. It was a radical proposal, uprooting their settled life for the sake of maintaining a connection with a bear. And yet, Noah found himself seriously considering it. Their experience with Willow had changed them all, opening their eyes to a different way of relating to the natural world. Perhaps this was the next step in that journey. We should talk to the kids about it, he said finally. See how they feel, and we'd need to visit the area, check out the towns, the schools. Of course, Eliza agreed quickly. I'm not suggesting we decide tonight, just think about it, as a possibility. Noah reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. I will, and Eliza, thank you for understanding how important this is. She's important to all of us, Eliza said simply. We're in this together, whatever this turns out to be. The week crawled by, each day seeming longer than the last as the family counted down to their first visit to the sanctuary. Dr. Reynolds called twice more with updates on Willow's progress, reporting that she was adapting well to her new environment and had even begun her physical therapy sessions to help strengthen her injured leg. Finally, Saturday arrived. The McAllisters piled into their car before dawn, eager to begin the 3-hour journey to Mountain Haven Wildlife Sanctuary. They had packed a cooler full of special treats for Willow, a bag of her favorite toys, and the children's latest school projects to show her, as if she were a relative they were visiting after a long absence. As they drove deeper into the mountains, the scenery changed dramatically, suburban neighborhoods giving way to dense forests and dramatic rock formations. The air grew cooler and sharper, filled with the scent of pine. Even the light seemed different, filtered through the canopy of ancient trees that lined the winding road. It's beautiful here, Lily remarked, gazing out the window at a cascading waterfall that appeared briefly between the trees. I bet Willow loves all these forests. Doctor? Reynolds says her habitat has lots of trees for climbing, Ethan added, though he's not sure if she'll climb much because of her leg. They followed Dr. Reynolds' detailed directions, turning onto increasingly remote roads until they reached a simple wooden sign marking the entrance to Mountain Haven Wildlife Sanctuary. Unlike a zoo or public wildlife center, the sanctuary wasn't designed for casual visitors. Its primary purpose was the care and rehabilitation of injured or orphaned wildlife. A long gravel driveway led them to a cluster of rustic buildings, a main lodge built of local stone and timber, several smaller cabins, and what appeared to be medical facilities. Beyond these structures, artfully integrated into the natural landscape, were the animal habitats, spacious enclosures designed to mimic the inhabitants' natural environments as closely as possible. Dr. Reynolds was waiting for them on the wide porch of the main lodge, a welcoming smile on his weathered face. "Right on time," he greeted them. "Willow's been especially active this morning, almost as if she knew you were coming." "How is she?" Noah asked immediately, as they all climbed out of the car. "Thriving," Dr. Reynolds replied with evident satisfaction. "She's eating well, exploring her habitat, and showing remarkable progress in her physical therapy. She's an exceptional animal in many ways." "Can we see her now?" Ethan asked eagerly. Dr. Reynolds laughed. "Of course. But first, I need to go over a few guidelines for your visit. The sanctuary operates differently from a zoo. Our primary concern is the well-being of the animals in our care, not visitor experience." He led them inside the lodge, where a comfortable sitting area faced a wall of windows overlooking the sanctuary grounds. As they settled onto couches, Dr. Reynolds explained the protocols for their visit, how to approach Willow's habitat, how long they could stay, what kind of interaction was appropriate. "Normally, we limit human contact with our residents to necessary care only," he told them. "But Willow's case is unique, given the bond you've already established. We're trying something new here, a balanced approach that honors that connection while still promoting her development as a bear." The children listened attentively, nodding at each instruction. Their serious expressions reflected an understanding of the responsibility they bore to put Willow's needs above their own desires. "Are there other bears here?" Lily asked when Dr. Reynolds finished his explanation. "Yes, we currently have 4 other black bears in residence, all with injuries or conditions that prevent their release back into the wild. Willow hasn't met any of them yet. We're taking introductions very slowly to ensure positive experiences. But there's one young female named Luna, who I think might become a good companion for Willow eventually. She has a similar temperament, curious and intelligent, with a gentle disposition." "Does Luna have an injury too?" Ethan asked. Dr. Reynolds nodded. "She was found as a cub near a logging operation. Her mother had been killed, and Luna suffered damage to her eyesight. She's partially blind in her right eye. She's been with us for about 2 years now." After finishing their orientation, Dr. Reynolds led the family outside and along a winding path that curved through the forest. Unlike the artificial enclosures of a conventional zoo, the habitats at Mountain Haven were designed to blend seamlessly with the natural environment, separated from visitors by thoughtfully placed barriers that provided security without creating a sense of confinement. "Willow's habitat is just ahead," Dr. Reynolds said as they rounded a bend in the path. "It's one of our newer enclosures, designed specifically for bears with mobility issues. There are gradual inclines rather than steep climbs, varied terrain for exercise, and multiple water features for both play and physical therapy." As they approached, Noah found himself holding his breath, uncertain what to expect. Would Willow remember them after a week apart? Would she have already adapted to her new home, leaving their time together as nothing more than a fading memory? The habitat appeared before them, a spacious, multi-level environment encompassing nearly an acre of forest, meadow, and water features. It was bounded by a sophisticated combination of natural barriers and unobtrusive fencing, ensuring Willow's safety while maximizing her freedom. "Where is she?" Lily asked, scanning the enclosure anxiously. Dr. Reynolds smiled and pointed toward a fallen log near a small stream. "There, watching us." And there she was, Willow, her black fur gleaming in the dappled sunlight, her attention already fixed on the new arrivals. For a moment, she remained motionless, as if processing what she was seeing. Then, with a speed that belied her injured leg, she began moving toward them, her distinctive limping gait instantly recognizable. "Willow," Ethan called out, unable to contain himself. "It's us." As Willow reached the edge of the habitat closest to them, Noah could see the recognition in her eyes, the same intelligent awareness that had marked their connection from the beginning. She made a soft huffing sound, then rose on her hind legs, pressing her front paws against the barrier as if trying to reach them. "She remembers," Eliza whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Of course she does," Dr. Reynolds said, his own voice thick with emotion. "That's the remarkable thing about Willow, her capacity for connection. It's unusual in a wild animal, especially one with so little previous human contact." There was a designated viewing area where the family could sit close to the edge of Willow's habitat. Dr. Reynolds led them there, explaining that while they couldn't enter the enclosure itself, this space allowed for safe, close interaction. "Under normal circumstances, we don't encourage this kind of contact," he reminded them. "But given Willow's unique situation and the role your family will continue to play in her care, we've made an exception. Just remember to follow the guidelines we discussed." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of joy and connection. Willow remained at the edge of her habitat nearest to the family, clearly delighted by their presence. She accepted the treats they had brought, carried the new toys into her den and back out again as if showing them off, and listened attentively as Lily read from her favorite book. Most remarkably, she continued to respond to their questions with her simple tapping system, 1 tap for yes, 2 for no, demonstrating that she had retained this form of communication despite her change in environment. "Are you happy here, Willow?" Ethan asked during a quiet moment. Willow considered the question, her dark eyes thoughtful, then deliberately tapped her paw once against the ground. "Is your leg feeling better?" Lily tried next. Another single tap. "Do you miss us?" Noah couldn't help asking. Willow looked directly at him, then tapped once, decisively, unmistakably. Dr. Reynolds, who had been observing from a respectful distance, shook his head in amazement. "In all my years working with wildlife, I've never seen anything quite like this. The level of comprehension she's displaying. It challenges many of our assumptions about animal cognition." As their visit drew to a close, Noah found himself filled with mixed emotions. The pain of separation remained, but it was tempered now by the knowledge that their connection with Willow endured. This wasn't an ending, but a new beginning. A different kind of relationship, perhaps, but no less meaningful. "We'll be back next weekend," he promised Willow as they prepared to leave. "And every weekend after that, as long as Dr. Reynolds allows it." Willow made a soft sound in response, pressing her nose against the mesh barrier where Noah's hand rested on the other side. It was as close to a physical touch as they could manage now, but somehow it felt sufficient, a bridge across the necessary distance between them. As they walked back to the main lodge with Dr. Reynolds, the zoologist surprised them with an unexpected proposal. "I've been thinking," he said, his tone casual but his eyes keen as he gauged their reactions. "The sanctuary has a small cabin that we sometimes use for visiting researchers or veterinary specialists. It's nothing fancy, just 2 bedrooms, a basic kitchen, living area, but it's comfortable and fully furnished." "It sounds nice," Eliza said politely, clearly wondering why he was telling them this. "It's currently unoccupied, Doctor," Reynolds continued. "And given the distance you're traveling each way, I thought perhaps you might like to use it for your weekend visits. You could arrive Friday evening and leave Sunday afternoon, giving you much more time with Willow than just these brief Saturday sessions." The offer was generous and unexpected. Noah exchanged a quick glance with Eliza, seeing his own surprise mirrored in her expression. "That's incredibly kind," Noah said. "Are you sure it wouldn't be an imposition?" Dr. Reynolds waved away the concern. "Not at all. In fact, having you here more regularly would be beneficial for Willow's transition, and—" he hesitated briefly. "I've been impressed by your family's commitment to her well-being. The children, especially, seem to have an intuitive understanding of how to interact with her respectfully. We've tried to teach them that animals aren't toys," Eliza explained, "that they have their own lives, their own needs and feelings that deserve consideration." "It shows," Dr. Reynolds said simply. "So, the cabin? Would you like to see it before you decide?" The cabin turned out to be a charming, rustic retreat, situated on a small rise overlooking a meadow dotted with wildflowers. Though modest in size, it was indeed comfortable, with all the necessary amenities and a large covered porch perfect for enjoying the mountain views. "It's beautiful," Lily breathed, already imagining weekends spent in this magical place. "And it's only a 5-minute walk to Willow's habitat," Dr. Reynolds pointed out. "Though, of course, all visits would still need to be scheduled and supervised, according to our protocols." The decision was an easy one. Beginning the following weekend, the McAllisters would make the sanctuary cabin their regular weekend home, creating a new rhythm to their lives centered around their continued relationship with Willow. As they drove back to Pinecrest Valley that evening, the mood in the car was dramatically different from the somber silence of their journey that morning. The children chattered excitedly about all they had seen at the sanctuary. Not just Willow, but the other animals Dr. Reynolds had introduced them to: a one-winged eagle, a family of foxes who couldn't be returned to the wild due to improper early socialization, a wolf with a healed but permanently damaged spine. "Dr. Reynolds says we might be able to help with some of the other animals too if we want," Lily reported. "Not just Willow. He said they always need volunteers." "That would be nice," Eliza agreed, catching Noah's eye with a small smile. Their conversation about potentially moving closer to the sanctuary hung unspoken between them, a possibility that seemed increasingly appealing after seeing the beauty of the area and the peaceful existence it offered. Their return to daily life was eased by the knowledge that they would see Willow again soon. The empty enclosure in their backyard no longer seemed like a painful reminder of loss, but rather a symbol of transition, of growth and new beginnings. The following Friday afternoon found them once again on the winding mountain road to the sanctuary, the car packed with overnight bags and more treats and toys for Willow. As they settled into the cabin, there was a sense of rightness to the arrangement, as if they had discovered a second home, a place where an important part of their lives could continue to unfold. Dr. Reynolds had arranged for them to have an evening session with Willow, taking advantage of the extended visit. As twilight descended over the mountains, bathing the sanctuary in golden light, the family made their way to her habitat. Willow was waiting for them, as if she somehow knew they would come. Her excitement at seeing them again was evident in her body language, the way she moved quickly to the edge of the habitat, the soft vocalizations she made, the attentive tilt of her head as they spoke to her. "We brought dinner to eat with you," Ethan told her, showing her the picnic basket they had prepared. "We'll have our food out here and you can have these." He carefully offered her a container of fresh berries through the special feeding hatch doctor Reynolds had showed them how to use. It was a beautiful evening, the family sharing their meal in the viewing area, while Willow enjoyed her own feast nearby, the conversation flowing easily between humans and bear, as if the arrangement were the most natural thing in the world. As darkness fell, solar-powered lights along the pathway illuminated gently, creating a magical atmosphere. "This is perfect," Lily sighed, leaning against Noah's shoulder. "It's like Willow isn't really gone at all. She just lives in a different house now." The routine they established over the following weeks brought a new balance to their lives. Weekdays were filled with work and school and the ordinary rhythms of life in Pinecrest Valley. Weekends were devoted to the sanctuary, to Willow, to learning about wildlife conservation from Dr. Reynolds, to exploring the beautiful mountain environment that was becoming their second home. Willow continued to thrive in her new habitat. Her physical therapy was showing results. While she would always have a limp, her mobility was improving, and she was gaining strength. She had begun to climb the specially designed structures in her enclosure, though she remained cautious on her injured leg. Most surprising to Dr. Reynolds was her cognitive development. With regular stimulation from the McAllister children, who created increasingly complex puzzles and games for her, Willow was demonstrating problem-solving abilities far beyond what was typically observed in bears, even those in captivity. "She's extraordinary," Dr. Reynolds remarked one Saturday in late July, as they watched Willow systematically work through a multi-step puzzle box Lily had designed, which required her to manipulate different mechanisms in a specific sequence to access a honey reward. Her ability to understand cause and effect, to remember complex patterns, it's remarkable. "We always knew she was special," Noah said, pride evident in his voice. The zoologist nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, but I'm beginning to wonder if it's more than that. Some animals are simply outliers in terms of intelligence, like Coco the gorilla or Alex the parrot. Animals who break the mold of what we think possible for their species." He watched as Willow successfully completed the final step of the puzzle, carefully extracting the honey pot. "I believe Willow may be one of those outliers." As summer progressed, a new development added an unexpected dimension to their time at the sanctuary. Dr. Reynolds, impressed by the children's natural aptitude with the animals, invited them to participate in a junior conservationist program he ran during the summer months. Alongside a small group of other children from surrounding communities, Lily and Ethan began learning about wildlife biology, conservation efforts, and the specialized care required by the sanctuary's residents. "It's not just about Willow anymore," Lily told Noah one evening as they sat on the cabin's porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of pink and gold. "I mean, she's still the most important, but I really like helping with the other animals too. Especially the fox kids. They're so playful and smart." Noah smiled, recognizing the expanding circle of his daughter's compassion. What had begun as a single connection, one family, one bear, was growing into something larger, a deeper understanding of their place within the natural world. August brought a significant milestone, Dr. Reynolds decided it was time to introduce Willow to Luna, the young female bear he had mentioned during their first visit. The introduction would be carefully managed, with the bears initially separated by a mesh barrier that would allow them to see and smell each other without physical contact. "Bear socialization is complex," Dr. Reynolds explained to the family as they prepared for the important day. "In the wild, bears are generally solitary animals, coming together primarily for mating or when food is plentiful. But in captivity, under the right circumstances, they can form social bonds that provide valuable mental stimulation and emotional support." "What if they don't like each other?" Ethan worried, clearly concerned for Willow's feelings. "Then we won't force the interaction," Dr. Reynolds assured him. This is just a first step. We'll observe their reactions and proceed based on what we see. The introduction took place on a quiet Tuesday morning, with only Dr. Reynolds, his assistant Miguel, and the McAllister family present. A temporary mesh barrier had been installed, dividing Willow's habitat into two sections. Luna would be brought into the second section, allowing the bears to observe each other safely. Willow seemed to sense that something unusual was happening. She watched with evident curiosity as Dr. Reynolds and Miguel prepared the habitat, moving restlessly along the edge nearest to the family as if seeking reassurance. "It's okay, Willow," Lily called softly. "You're going to meet a new friend today. Her name is Luna, and she's a bear, just like you." At precisely 10 o'clock, the door to the adjoining section slid open, and Luna cautiously entered the habitat. She was slightly larger than Willow, with a distinctive white patch on her chest and the slight cloudiness in her right eye that marked her partial blindness. She moved with the deliberate caution of an animal familiarizing itself with new territory, her nose working constantly as she processed the unfamiliar scents. It took several minutes before the two bears became aware of each other. Willow noticed Luna first, freezing in place as she caught sight of another bear, for what was likely the first time since losing her mother. Her reaction was one of intense interest rather than fear. She tilted her head, ears forward, body language alert but not aggressive. Luna's discovery of Willow came moments later, as a shift in the wind carried Willow's scent to her. The older bear turned sharply, her good eye focusing on Willow with evident surprise. For a long, tense moment, the two bears simply stared at each other across the dividing mesh. Then, to everyone's amazement, Willow did something unprecedented. She approached the barrier and sat down directly in front of it, as if inviting interaction. After a moment's hesitation, Luna did the same, mirroring Willow's posture on the opposite side of the mesh. "Extraordinary," Dr. Reynolds murmured. "This level of immediate interest without any signs of territorial display or aggression. It's highly unusual." What followed was a fascinating exchange of non-verbal communication. The bears sniffed at each other through the mesh, made soft vocalizations, and even engaged in a form of mimicry. When Willow placed her paw against the barrier, Luna did the same on her side, creating a symbolic if not physical contact. "They're talking to each other," Ethan whispered, wide-eyed with wonder. "In their own way, yes, Doctor," Reynolds agreed. "They're establishing a basis for communication, learning about each other through scent and sound and visual cues." The initial introduction lasted for an hour, with both bears maintaining consistent interest in each other throughout. When the time came to separate them, Luna returning to her own habitat until the next scheduled interaction, there was a palpable sense of reluctance on both sides. "That went better than I could have possibly hoped," Dr. Reynolds told the family afterward, his excitement evident. "Based on what we saw today, I think we can proceed with a series of increasingly extended interactions, potentially leading to a shared habitat arrangement if all continues to go well." "Willow would have a bear friend," Lily said, clearly delighted by the prospect. "Someone who understands her bear things that we can't." Noah nodded, recognizing the wisdom in his daughter's words. For all their love and dedication, they could never fully comprehend certain aspects of Willow's nature, the instincts, perceptions, and experiences unique to her species. A companion like Luna might fulfill needs they couldn't even identify. Over the following weeks, Willow and Luna continued their supervised interactions, gradually moving from visual contact to sharing the same physical space for brief periods. Their relationship developed in ways that fascinated Dr. Reynolds and his team, who documented every interaction for a research study on bear socialization in captivity. They're displaying behaviors we would typically associate with juvenile bears in the wild, Dr. Reynolds explained one afternoon, as they watched the two bears engaged in what could only be described as play, a gentle wrestling match that carefully accommodated both Willow's limp and Luna's partial blindness. Testing boundaries, establishing a hierarchy, learning each other's strengths and limitations. But there's an additional dimension to their interaction, a level of accommodation that suggests true social awareness. By mid-September, the bears were spending several hours each day together, and plans were underway to modify both their habitats to create a larger shared space with separate dens where each could retreat for privacy when desired. For the McAllister family, witnessing Willow's growing friendship with Luna was both joyful and bittersweet. While they delighted in her apparent happiness and development, they couldn't help but notice that her attention during their visits was now divided, no longer focused exclusively on them but shared with her new bear companion. "She's growing up," Eliza observed gently, seeing Noah's complex emotions as they watched Willow and Luna foraging together one crisp fall afternoon. Finding her place in her own world. Noah nodded, understanding the truth in his wife's words. Just as their human children would eventually grow beyond the boundaries of their family, creating lives and relationships of their own, so too was Willow evolving, becoming more fully herself, more fully a bear, with each passing day. Yet the connection they had forged remained strong. Willow still greeted them with evident joy during their weekend visits, still participated in the reading sessions and games they brought, still communicated through her simple but effective tapping system. She had simply expanded her circle to include Luna, enriching her life rather than replacing one bond with another. As autumn painted the mountains in brilliant hues of red and gold, the McAllister family faced a significant decision. Eliza's contract at the hospital would be up for renewal in January, requiring them to commit to another year in Pinecrest Valley, or pursue the idea they had been quietly discussing since summer, relocating to the mountain community near the sanctuary. "We need to talk about it as a family," Eliza said one evening, as they gathered in the cabin's cozy living room after a day spent at the sanctuary. "This would be a major change for all of us, and everyone's feelings matter." The children, somewhat to Noah's surprise, were immediately enthusiastic about the prospect. "We could see Willow all the time, not just on weekends," Ethan pointed out, as if this alone settled the matter. "And I loved the school here," Lily added. They had visited the local elementary school during one of their weekend stays, finding it small but excellent, with an emphasis on environmental education that aligned perfectly with Lily's growing interest in wildlife. "It's not quite that simple," Noah cautioned. "Moving means leaving behind our friends, our house, the community we know. It means Dad finding new building projects, Mom finding a new position at the regional hospital. It's a big adjustment. But we'd be adjusting together," Lily said with the simple wisdom of her 12 years. "And we'd have Willow and Dr. Reynolds and all the animals at the sanctuary. It's like expanding our family, not losing anything." Noah and Eliza exchanged a look over the children's heads, a moment of silent communication born of years together. They had both, independently and together, been researching the practicalities of relocation. Noah had made inquiries about construction opportunities in the area and found promising leads. Eliza had spoken with the director of the regional medical center, who had expressed strong interest in adding an experienced nurse educator to their staff. "Let's give it serious thought," Noah suggested. "We don't need to decide immediately, but it seems like we're all at least open to the possibility." The conversation continued late into the evening, exploring various aspects of what such a move would entail, the type of house they would look for, the logistics of relocation, the timeline that would work best for school transitions. By the time they went to bed, the idea had shifted from a vague possibility to a concrete plan they were actively considering. The next morning, they shared their thoughts with Dr. Reynolds during their regular coffee meeting before visiting Willow. "I won't pretend I'm not delighted by the prospect," the zoologist admitted, his eyes crinkling with pleasure. "Your family has become an invaluable part of our community here, not just for Willow, but for the sanctuary as a whole. The children's participation in our programs, your own volunteer hours, it's made a significant difference." "We haven't decided for certain," Eliza cautioned. "There are still many factors to consider." Dr. Reynolds nodded, understanding. "Of course. But should you choose to make the move, I want you to know that there would be a place for both of you here at the sanctuary, if you're interested. Not just as volunteers, but potentially in professional capacities." This was unexpected. "What do you mean?" Noah asked. "Well, Eliza's nursing background would be invaluable in our veterinary department. We're always in need of skilled medical personnel who can assist with animal care. And Noah, your construction expertise, we've been planning an expansion of our facilities for years, including new habitats and a dedicated education center. Having someone on staff who understands both building and the unique needs of a wildlife sanctuary would be tremendously valuable." The possibility hung in the air between them. Not just a move to be near Willow, but a complete life transformation, aligning their professional skills with their growing passion for wildlife conservation. "Think about it," Dr. Reynolds suggested, seeing their surprised expressions. "No pressure, no timeline, just a door that's open should you choose to walk through it." The rest of the weekend passed in a blur of activity, their regular time with Willow, now often including Luna as well. The children's participation in sanctuary programs, discussions with locals about life in the mountain community. By the time they packed up to return to Pinecrest Valley on Sunday afternoon, the idea of relocation had taken firm root in all their minds. The following weeks were filled with practical considerations. Noah and Eliza researched the housing market in the mountain community, finding several promising properties that would suit their needs. They spoke with financial advisors about the feasibility of the move, explored school enrollment for the children, and began the process of preparing their current home for potential sale. Throughout it all, their weekend visits to the sanctuary continued, a constant reminder of the new life they were considering, the new purpose they had discovered through their unexpected relationship with a bear named Willow.